Alright, diesel electric road locomotive operating instruction. Section 6, Class B, Baldwin Locomotive of the Works, passenger 3 unit train, general locomotive. Baldwin Locomotive of the Works, 600 horsepower, 2257 gear ratio, maximum speed 100 miles an hour. Units per locomotive, 2 A units, 1 B, trucks per unit, 2 axles per truck, 3 traction motors per truck, 2 wheel diameter 42 inches, journal size 7 and 13 inches, brake schedule Westinghouse 24RL, maximum overload, overall dimensions, A unit, we'll read A unit first, 14 and a half, 10 and a half, and 14 foot with 10 and a half inches, 10 foot, 6 inches width, a length, 80 foot, B unit, 14 and 10 and a half inches height, width, 10 and a half feet, B unit length 78 foot 2.5 inches. Total weight 38,100 pounds, 387,100 pounds. For A unit, and weight of the drivers 257,200 pounds. A unit 374,500 pounds. B unit total weight 250,000 pounds. Weight on the drivers. Steam generator with water supply, tank capacity 1,370 gallons. Fuel oil capacity 1,200 gallons. Sand capacity 30 cubic feet. The B unit is the steam generator water supply, tank capacity 1,370 gallons, 1,200 gallons. Fuel oil capacity 30 cubic feet. Alright, General Data diesel engine, make and model BLW606 SC, horsepower governor RPM 1000 horsepower at 625 RPMs, in type inline 4-cycle, number cylinders 6, bore strokes 12 and 3/4 inch by 15 and a half inches, and idling speed 315 revolutions per minute, firing order 124653, number of 2 engines per unit 2. Lubricating oil capacity each for the engines 165 gallons. Cooling water capacity each for the engine 287 gallons. Diesel engine. The diesel engine on the class locomotive is the same as described in diesel engine section 4 with class BP1, except for the 6-cylinder instead of the 8-cylinder. The cylinder of the engine compared to the number of the rear of the front, starting with the 1 rear end of the ending with the 6 at the front of the end. Diesel engine governor and governor control, same as described in section 4 class BP1, except for the idling speed of the diesel engine is 315 miles per revolutions per minute. Diesel engine cooling system. The cooling system of the several engine for the locomotive is similar to the independent each of the water circulated through the cooling system of the central fusion water pump located in the front end of the pump. Front end of the engine, the pump circulates the water around the engine cylinder line through the back of the engine water manifold, for which it is piped to the cooling radiators located over the head at the rear end of the engine. After passing the radiators, the water flows to the oil, the cooling heat exchange of the back of the pump. The expansion tank located over the front end of the engine is connected to the suction side of the pump. The radiators and engine water manifolds are vented with the expansion tank. When temperature may be checked with the dial type of the thermometer located on the side wall opposite with the engine control panel, the temperature cooling water with the layer from 150 to 160 degrees Fahrenheit under normal conditions. Shutter controlling the cooling water temperature is operated with the air control reservoir pressure through the magnet valve with the shutter fully open at all times for the cooling fans running the air from the cooling control reservoir with the 17-pound reducing valve, the thermostatically controlled air valve with the gradual state operating the pneumatic switch with the control shuttering magnet valve. Also the speed motor driven radiator cooling fans. The radiator cooling fans operate with the 2 different rates of speed depending upon the water temperature and are supplied with the power of the main generator. The pre-position of the fan shutter for the control switch located on the engine control panel open. Operated as follows. Off, the fan will not operate, the shutters are closed. Fan operates low speed, but the shutters may be adjusted by hand to any desired position. Automatic operating fans and shutters control the temperature controlling switches. The shutter operation mechanism for the manual operated with the handle located at the end of the radiator section over the rear end of the engine with the graduated step pneumatic temperature switch for the equipment cabinet with each for the engine with the reducing valve with the filter located with the number 2 cabinet equipment cabinet. Separated water temperature switch for the set 190 degrees Fahrenheit will activate the engine shut down with the solenoid valve to stop the engine when the engine cooling water temperature becomes excessive. For the operating with the water temperature switch will sound with the alarm light with the hot engine light with the engine control panel with the engine involved. The cooling system may be filled through the filling connection for the each valve of the unit with the filling connection with the roof over the expansion tank. The water level of the cooling system is indicated with the glass. The water gauge located with the expansion tank. Water must show in the gauge gas at all times with the diesel engine being operated. If the locomotive is left to be standing with the diesel engine shut down within the danger of freezing, the steam may be applied to the system. The cooling water system should be drained. The fuel for supplying steam with the cooling system connection with the steam train line is made with the steam admission valve located with the adjacent to the steam generator connected with the cooling water system. The check-off and shut-off valve near the water pump of the engine diesel. Steam can be supplied with the connecting outside steam line with the steam train line with either end by operating the steam generator drain. The engine with cooling system open the radiator drain valve to one and each side of the engine drain valve to the water pump. The diesel engine lubricating oil system. Lubricating oil systems several engines of the locomotive are similar, independent of each other. Lubricating oil systems carried with the crankcase of the engine. Bayonet type of oil level gauge located with the right hand of the side of the engine near the front of the end of the level of lubrication in the crankcase. The oil level should be maintained between high and low with the level of marks on the gauge, but the empty engine shut down with allowing 5 minutes after the engine is stopped before checking. Oil may be added to the system necessary through the oil filling through equipment, opening equipment with the screw cap located with the adjacent with the bayonet gauge. Lubricating oil pump located with the left side of the engine near the front and the draw for the over the engine crank for the suction line check gauge for the trainers and the pump, then through the absorbent type of the fuel full flow filter metal edge for the type of the strain, but then through the oil cleaning of the heat exchange for the internal heater of the header from the wear that flows to the bearings and passengers and internal parts of the requiring lubrication. Alright, the oil cooling heat exchange located at the front end of the diesel engine provides the transfer of heat with the lubricating oil cooling water, therefore as it also defines the relationship between the lubricating oil temperature and cooling water temperature. A dial tip gauge located on the sidewall opposite with the engine control showing the lubricating oil pressure delivered to the lubricating oil header should show 65 pounds of pressure at the full engine speed. Lower speed of the pressure will proportionally lower with no time of the pressure drop below 20 pounds. If the lubricating oil pressure cannot be maintained with above 20 pounds, the engine must be shut down. The turbocharger supplied with lubricating oil through the filter reducing valve set at 20 pounds. Separate dial type gauge located on the sidewall opposite of the engine control panel shows the turbocharger oil pressure. If the pressure for the lubricating oil system becomes excess for the relief of the bypass pressure valve set at 125 pounds will spill and pump out into the crankcase. If the pressure drop through the oil cooling heat exchanger exceeds 25 pounds due to the obstruction, the heat exchanger will be bypassed with the relief valve. The lubricating oil pressure switch connected to the engine header operates with the shutdown diesel engine sound with the alarming lubricating oil pressure drops 15 pounds. The diesel engine fuel oil system of the several diesel engines for the locomotive are similar to and independent from each other, except for one of the fuel supply tanks mounted for each of the unit of the locomotive supply for the fuels for both diesel engines for the unit with the two fuel transferred pump the connection with the valve type of the emergency or operation. Double type of the fuel gauge sight glass gauge located on each side of the fuel supply tank. The dial type of the gauge is graduated from full to the empty, and the side of the glass indicates the level of the fuel oil from 4.5 inches below the top of the tank to the top of the tank to the top of the tank. Electrically driven fuel transfer pump located with the right side of each of the diesel engine draws fuel with the supply tank through the separate suction line with the metal edge of the type of the strainer delivers it through the triple unit cotton twine type filter with the fuel oil manifold which is connected with each of the fuel junction pump with the valve with the pipe connection between the discharge line with the both transfer pump. On a unit permits the operation of the both diesel engine with one pump. If the valves other fail with the valve, each of the valve connecting pipe must be accomplished. It should be used only in emergency. The dial type of gauge located on the sidewall opposite with the engine control shows the fuel pressure for the fuel manifold should normally be 25 pounds. Fuel oil pressure control with the two pressure relief valves, the one located with the discharge line with the fuel transfer pump set with approximately 35 pounds, the other located with the end of the fuel oil fan manifold set with approximately 25 pounds of fuel pressure relieved. Either valve of these valves will return the supply of the tank of the individual fuel injection pump connected with the high pressure pipe in the individual injector and provided with each of the cylinder of the diesel engine cam on the camshaft operates the fuel injection pump at the proper time to deliver the fuel injected with the stroke with the fuel injection pump at all times. The amount of the fuel injected with each of the stroke is controlled by the engine governor, which varies the effective stroke of the fuel injection pump. 3 emergency fuel cutoff valves located in the unit with the suction line with the fuel supply tank on the other right-hand side of the unit with the number 1 engine, the diffused left-hand side of the unit with the number 2 engine, the steam generator. All valves may be closed by pulling one of the 3 pull rings on the unit located as valves. 1 in the cab of the position, engine position, A unit in the holster position, and B in the 2 on the outside of the fuel tank on each of the unit. A branch from the fuel transfer pump discharge that is connected to the engine shut down with the solenoid valve at the front end of the engine. When the circuit of the solenoid valve is made with the fuel oil under the pressure of the flow for the engine shutdown cylinder located to the right of the side of the engine. Push the piston out and permitting the movement of the fuel rack under control for the engine control governor. Opening the circuit of the solenoid valve that permits the fuel oil to flow into the supply tank. Springing in the shutdown cylinder. Move the position to withhold the fuel racks in no injection position, stopping the diesel engine. Electrical power system main generator. Each of the unit contains two diesel engine 100 horsepower. Each of the main generators connected to each of the diesel engine with a coupling feed for the two traction motors behind the truck under its engine, and also the radiator cooling fans for the traction motor blowers that are driven the diesel engine. Auxiliary generator exciter, same as described in Section 4, Class BP1. Control stand, same as described in Section 4, BP1. Traction motor. One traction motor drive the leading axle with one trailing axle. Each of the track throwing spare gears of 25 to 57. The ratio of the traction motor around each of the truck are air cooled by a single blower. The traction motors are permanently connected to the prayer wheel. The transmission consisting of one-step traction motor field shunting which takes place automatically 55 miles an hour backward transition, also automatically electrical equipment combination of two electrical equipment cabinets for each of the unit marked with the number 1 and for the number 1 and number 2 for the number 2 engines located at the rear end of the right side of the respective engines where the doors open. The right and left axles of the unit respectively contain the following apparatus: 4 main power contactors operated with the air pressure through the magnetic valve marked P1, P2 in the number 1 cabinet, P3 and P4 in the number 2 cabinet. 4 traction motor field shunting contactors M1 and M2 for the number 1 cabinet, M3 and M4 for the number 2 cabinet. 2 reversers operated with the air pressure for the magnetic valves marked forward 1, reverse 1, number 1 cabinet, and forward 2, reverse number 2, number 2 cabinet. 2 ground relays marked GR1, number 1 cabinet, GR2 for the number 2 cabinet. The ground and high voltage circuit for the manually reset the bullet located on the engine control panel can be cut into the emergency opening. The sealed circuit of the breaker down is on the engine control panel. 1 control contactor marked the CRA, CR and number 2 contact. 1 control relay of the COR and number 2 contact cabinet. For engine starting armature contactors, marked G1 and G3 for the number 1 cabinet, and G2 and G4 for the number 2 cabinet. Starting this protective relay for the part PG1 for the number 1 cabinet, PT2 for the number 2 cabinet. 2 wheel slip relays, WS1 for the number 1 cabinet, WS2 for the number 2 cabinet. 2 emergency engine stop contactors marked ES1 and ESX for the both number 2 and both the number 2 cabinet. 2 fat and motors field shunting relays marked R1 for the number 1 cabinet, R2 for the number 2 cabinet. 6 generator field contactors marked GF10 for the number 1 cabinet, starting the shunt field of the weakening resistor. GF11 for the number 1 cabinet, GF12 for the number 1 cabinet, GF20 for the number 2 cabinet, starting the shunt field of the weakening resistor. GF21 number 2 cabinet, GF22 number 2 cabinet, starting. 2 exciter field contactors marked EF1 for the number 1 cabinet, EF2 for the number 2 cabinet, and 2 power control contactors for the FR1 for the number 1 cabinet, FR2 for the number 2 contact cabinet. 1 traction motor field shunting relay with the FS in the front of the end number 1 cabinet. The 6 radiator fan motor contact for the marked F1, F3, F5 for the number 1 cabinet, F2, F4, and F6 for the number 2 cabinet. 2 engine shutdown alarm relays, the SG and the number 1 cabinet, SG and the number 2 cabinet. Fuel water temperature control switch for the marked TS1 and TS3 for the number 1 cabinet, TS2 for the TS4 for the number 2 cabinet. Oil boil alarm relay marked BOR for the number 1 cabinet, 1 fire alarm relay marked for the FRA for the number 2 cabinet. 2 battery charging contactors to the A1 number 1 cabinet and A2 for the number 2 cabinet. Reverse relay curve relays, the RC1 for the number 1 cabinet, RC2 for the number 2 cabinet. 2 voltage relays marked VR1 for the number 1 cabinet, VR2 for the number 2 cabinet. 2 shutter control magnet valves marked SV1 for the number 1 cabinet, SV2 for the number 2 cabinet. Resistive traction motor field shunting radiator fan control fuses. 2 auxiliary generator, 1 each for the cabinet, 175 amp for the 2 fan shutter control, 1 each for the cabinet, 15 amp for the 2 radiator cooling fan motors, 1 in each cabinet, 175 amperes. 2 cab signals in the number 2 cabinet, A units only with 70 amp for the 1 control, and the number 1 cabinet only 10 amp. Thermal overload circuit breakers. 1 cabinet signal motor generator set in the rear of the A units at 50 amperes, and 1 mastering lighting in number 1 cabinet, 35 amperes. Hand operated switch, 2 main battery switches, 1 in each cabinet. 1 the battery engine emergency transfer with a headlight with the cab signal number 2 cabinet in A units. 1 steam generator transfer switch for the number 1 cabinet. 1 standby light transfer switch to the number 1 cabinet. 2 fuel pump transfer switches and 1 in each cabinet. 1 the control disconnecting switch in the number 1 cabinet. 4 traction motor cutoff switch marked for the TMCO1 and TMCO2, number 1 cabinet, TMCO3 and TMCO4 with the number 2 cabinet. 1 fuse tester in the number 1 cabinet. Control push button switch box. The control push button switch box is located on the left side of the engine control stand with each of the operating cable contains the following push button switch for the control. Each of the establish multiple unit power of the control through the throttle reverse lever with the reverse with field contact with the main power contact is complete. The circuit with the master control magnet with the overspeed complete. The circuit with the overspeed magnet valve diffused only with the twist is not used. Cab signal completes the circuit in cab with the signal with the defroster fans attend with the call of the American light, backup light, gauge lights, number lights. Emergency engine stop. Operates the emergency engine stop with the contact for shutting down all the engine for the locomotive. Each of the switches fused with a separate 15 ampere located with the switch box locating device at the top of the box. The removable key locks with the control switch for the against unauthorized person operation. At engine position, the following are located with the engine position: headlight switch with the full, off, and dim positions, gauge light dimming, 3-stat cab theater, fan circuit breaker, 15 ampere electro-pneumatic brake circuit, 15 ampere speed governor circuit breaker, 15 ampere hood light switch, engine control panel. The engine control panel, similar to described in Section 4, Class B1, has been mounted with the electrical equipment cabinet for each of the each engine with no fuel pump. Circuit breaker is provided with the fuel transfer pump being started and closing the engine stop. The circuit with the following are located in each of the panel: engine start push button number 1 and start push button number 2. Ground relays, reset button, hot engine indication light, ground relay indication light, power cut circuit, power cutout circuit breaker, 15 ampere engine stop circuit breaker cutout, or 15 ampere auxiliary generator field circuit breaker, 25 ampere cabinet light circuit breaker, 15 ampere ground relay cutout circuit breaker, 15 ampere engine idle isolation switch, and fan shutter control switch, battery charge indicator selector switch number 1 panel only, battery charge indicator number 1 panel only. Following gauges are located on the sidewall over the unit opposite each of the engine control panel: fuel, oil pressure, engine gauge, lubrication, oil pressure, turbocharger, oil pressure, engine water temperature. Load control C is described in Section 4, Class B1. Power knockout switch C is described in Section 4, Class B.1. Master control magnet valve C is described in Section 4, Class BP1. Throttle unloading magnet valve C is described in Section 4, Class B1, BP1, mounted on the rear end of the diesel engine frame. Engine shut down with the solenoid valve, same as described in Section 4, Class BP1, mounted on the front end of the diesel engine compressed air system, same as described in Section 4, Class B1, except those the air control air gauge located with the nose to A units at the holster position of B units. The air brake system, the class for the locomotive, the use of Type 24RL air brake equipment, the K2 rotary valve on the A units. Each of the 2 trucks under each of the unit is equipped with a 4 brake cylinder, 2-sided vent cutout cocks, each with the cutout and relief for the air brake cylinder on the truck located on the right side of each of the unit. Alright, locomotive operation. Inspection preparation of the surface after the locomotive has been prepared, properly inspecting electrical equipment cabinet each of the engine. See all the fuses with the place, all switches and the trickle breakers are closed. Engine position with the controlling unit. They see the throttle in the idle position, reverse lever in the off position, control push button, close control push button, switch engine the position in the trailing unit. They see the throttle in the idle position. See that the reverse lever has been moved. They see the control push button. The switch is open. The switch box located with the key moved at each of the diesel engine control panel. Please place the engine stop at the circuit breaker on the on position. Plate alarm should sound. No fuel oil pressure is indicated on the gauge. Press the engine start push button on number 1, holding it until the engine fires at least 20 pounds of lubricating oil pressure obtained. If the engine does not turn fast enough to start, the end cranking speed can be increased by pressing the engine start button on the button and number 2 while pushing the number 1 button is held in. Place the engine idle isolation switch for the on position. Start the power cutoff circuit breaker on the on position. See the radiator fan shutter control switch is in the automatic position 5. The automatic, after both examined on the unit have been started, the both placed the generator field circuit on each of the end of the control panel on the unit on position. At the engine control panel, number 1 engine on each of the unit, check the battery charge indicator with the both position with the selector switch for the battery charge for the auxiliary generator. Moving the locomotive, the road locomotive. Place the foot on the dead man pedal with release the air brakes. Place the reverse lever in forward reverse position as required. Move the throttle lever to the first position. Pause it until loaded with the ammeter. Increase the current. The throttle lever should be advanced slowly to position necessary to start the train. In starting a heavy train, care must be exercised properly to control slack along before accelerating. Alright, using the load meter ammeter. The division between the white and red scale of the load of the ammeter indicates the permissible continuous current within 1800 amps. The operation of the load with the 1800 amps permissible only any one of the following limitations for the throttle lever the wide open: 2000 amperes to 40 minutes, 2200 amperes to 20 minutes, 2600 amperes to 5 minutes, 3000 amperes 6 minutes, 3600 amperes 4 minutes. If unable to operate below the maximum continuous running after the operating on any of the one of the above overload limitations, the tonnage must be reduced to help them attain. Operation without low diameter is necessary to operate without the low diameter of the throttle lever with the wide open position, minimal continuous speed of 23 miles an hour overload. Avoid overload. Operation speed between 23 and is permissible under any of the following limitations: throttle lever with the wide open position, 20 miles an hour, 40 minutes, 18 miles an hour, 20 minutes, 13 and a half miles, 10 minutes, 10 miles an hour, 6 minutes, 5 miles an hour, 4 minutes. Isolating the diesel engine. If necessary to isolate the diesel engine, place the engine idle or isolation switch to the idle position. Steam generator transfer should be provided with the number one electrical equipment cabinet. The diesel engine shut down with the transfer switch should be placed in the position operation with the steam generator from the edge of the engine. The steam generator must shut down before the transfer switch is operated. Putting the diesel engine online. It is necessary to put the diesel engine online with regard to the throttle lever, the position, place the engine idle in the switch in the on position. The diesel engine will automatically come up and gradually speed corresponding with the throttle position. Emergency engine stop. Stop all the diesel engine with emergency and accomplished with the closing of one emergency engine stop push and button switch located on the push button switch box on each of the unit. All emergency engine stop push buttons must be in the open position before any diesel can be restarted. Ground relay operation. With the ground relay operated, the diesel engine should be isolated with the ground relay. Reset the diesel engine placed on the back on the line. With the ground relay operates, the alarm will sound with the ground indicating light will light on the engine control panel. With the diesel engine involved with the speed, with the diesel engine will reduce the idle power that will be removed the traction motor associated with it. If the ground relay fails to remain, the reset of the traction motor cutout switch located with the electrical equipment cabinet may be operated, but the diesel engine must be isolated before operating the traction motor cutout switch. If cutting the one of the traction motor was removed, the ground with the diesel engine may be put back in line, operating on other than traction motor. When the traction motor fed with the number one engine leading, the A unit is cut out with the load indicating with the load ammeter must be restricted to one half of the current rating. Engine stop warning indication when the diesel engine is due to the operation water temperature switch, low lubricating oil pressure switch, or over stop. The emergency engine stop, the lack of fuel alarm will sound. If the engine stops due to the high water cooling temperature, the hot engine indication light will light engine control panel with the diesel engine involved with checking the cooling water level. Check the shutter fan operation. Renew the fan motor fan shutter control fuse with electrical equipment cabinet. If necessary, the automatic fan shutter controls will not function properly. Place the fan and shutter control switch in the main man position and adjust the shutters by hand. If the engine stopped due to the cause of the other than hauling cool water temperature, checking fuel oil pressure, over speed stop, the lubrication oil level crankcase of the engine, examine the external piping lubrication oil system for leaks. Note, when attempting to start the diesel engine, if no fuel pressure is obtained, check the fuel pump with running. If not, check with the engine stop, circuit breaker with the engine control panel closed with the control disconnections with the number one electrical equipment, the cabinet closed with the fuel pump, transfer switch, the electrical equipment cabinet, engine bang start with the closed position for the operating fuel pump, the emergency engine with the stop push and button switch open and H for the unit with the fuel pump is running, check the fuel supply, engineering, emergency fuel cutoff level, the full suction line of the pump for leaks. 2. The diesel engine does not rotate with the engine start push button is pressed. Check the isolation switch for the idle position. Check if the batteries is closed. Check the starting contactor for the electrical equipment cabinet. If the diesel engine rotates but does not fire, check the overspeed stop the reset and necessary. Check the oil supply of each for the governor. While the diesel engine rotating, see that the position of the diesel engine shutdown cylinders move out with the permanent free of the injector lay shaft. 4. If the locomotive fails to develop the diesel engine running throttle, open the following checks should be made. See if the reverse level in the proper position, brakes are released. The control push button switch is closed. Check the 15 amp control fuse push button, the switch box on the controlling unit. See the cutout cock with the control air supply and the control stand open. Check the control reserve pressure gauge and the nose of the controlling unit. Check the 70 amp control fuse, the number one electrical equipment cabinet with the control unit. Check the position of all power cutouts and circuit breaker with the isolation switch. If the locomotive moved with more than one diesel engine failed to deliver the power, the following checks should be made. See the isolation switcher on the on position. Check the ground relays. Reset the trip. Check the control reverse pressure. See that all the starting contactors are open. Check the throttle pipe with the leakage, including the connection between the units. See the cutout cock for the throttle pipe with the fully open. Check the 70 amp control fuse for the effective when changing operating event before the proceeding to the end of the P button. The control pushing button switch box is located when the control pushing button switch is open. 7. When low battery condition exists, the lead operating unit with both auxiliary generators and operative the locomotive can be controlled with the operating cab of the units is followed. The opening and control disconnecting switch battery number switch. The number one electrical equipment cabinet open the battery switch. The number two cabinet on the leading unit A. The control close the control push button switch on the leading A unit. Close the controls push button switch on the closed cutout cock and the air supply of the control stand. The trailing unit close the control contact mark CR on the number two electrical equipment cabinet of leading the A unit using flag stick. 70 ampere control fuse and number one cabinet with the 50 ampere control fuse control push button switch box must be is Sounds good. Diesel electric road locomotives operating instruction section 7 class FP3 Fairbanks Morse Company, a passenger 3 unit.